Now, as we live in an era when we can actually afford to buy affordable IEMs, the question is what the frick they are. So hear me carefully, as I'm gonna say this only once, as IEMs are something which are extremely futuristic. Well, IEMs mean in-ear monitors, which mean that you don't need that huge monitor next to your computer anymore once you hook these things up in your ears. Yeah, sorry. Hey everyone, Mukul here. You know, the past few years have been extremely exciting for tech enthusiasts, as we are seeing a lot of really good stuff in the budget and affordable category. And a lot of this stuff doesn't really perform crap anymore, and IEMs are one of those things which have gotten really cheap from a few of these Chinese companies. And my recent experience and investment with few of these for this video has really surprised me of how good they are. I mean, we are so used to the crappy qualities of these Bluetooth earbuds, as most of the phones now don't come with the 3.5 jack anymore on them. And these consumer end earbuds are mostly bass heavy, as of course no one wants clarity in their life, as it's mostly full of lows and stuff which is generally low. So I chose these three earphones, which are as cheap as any IEMs could be, and all of these are Chinese brands, of course. I mean, nothing beats the Chinese right now in terms of making good but cheap products. All of these cost me 1,000 rupees each, and they are slightly cheaper in the US market. I mean, of course, as we all know, Indians are the most filthy rich people in the entire world. Now, IEMs generally mean in-ear monitors, and anything which has the word monitors associated with them, well, they generally mean that those earphones or headphones or speakers are meant to actually replicate a sound like how an audio engineer wanted it to sound like. Yeah, I hope that was clear. That means the sound drivers aren't modified much to favor any one side of the frequency with any sort of artificial boost. And that is mainly the lows, as a lot of consumers tend to love bass heavy sounds when they listen to a lot of stuff, which in return sacrifices the clarity of a sound you are listening to. So these IEMs generally keep the frequencies as wide and as flat as possible, so that you get to listen to something as pure as possible without any artificial tinkering. Monitors also mean to monitor something without these artificial boosted frequencies, and hence any audio engineer or a video editor would always use a monitor like these headphones and these good speakers to produce the stuff they produce. Also, IEMs generally have a unique shape and design which is more accustomed to how a human ear is shaped like, so they might tend to be more comfortable, but not all IEMs end up doing so. Never fall into the impression that just because you are buying something which looks like an IEM, then it will end up being comfortable, which can be untrue sometimes. Well, CCA is a Hong Kong based company, and I could only find their Twitter and AliExpress page. The registered manufacturer of TRN are Dongwon Zuodu Acoustic Technology. I'm extremely sorry if I totally mispronounced it. And they do have an official website which states they are based in Dongwon city in China. They have a pretty badly optimized website, and everything was in Chinese language. Well, I know one guy who is gonna roast me for that pronunciation. The KZ website was the easiest to find and is a well optimized one, and you will notice that they have this huge catalog of almost everything which exists on this entire planet. It is also based in Dongwon city in China, so I am just guessing that all of these IEMs have the same OEM somewhere in China, of course. The packaging is absolutely the same across all of these three IEMs. The dimension of all these boxes and the supplied earbuds are also of the same size. How they disassemble is also the same, so yeah, same exception. The TRN MT1 came with a QC certificate and a manual and a warranty card. The CCA CA2 came with a manual and a warranty card, and the KZ EDX Pro just came with a manual. Also, each of them get 3 earbuds each of different sizes, so yeah. Well, in my opinion, the EDX Pro looks the best one out of the lot, primarily because of the fact that the other two IEMs have these really obsolete looking font logos slapped on them. I felt the MT1 had the worst cable quality, which gets tangled pretty easily and is quite loose. And then followed by CA2, which does resemble the quality of MT1 pretty closely, but it does feel to have a better finish on it, and the loops are quite intact. Even the finish and the rigidity of the cable is better, but the EDX Pro's cable just stands out overall with this translucent wire covering all over the loops of the wires, and this makes it feel better, and the finish also is quite fine and refined. And because of all of this, this cable might just last the longest. All the IEMs here have this curved cushioning around the earbuds so that you can figure this mess out and get them to fit your ears perfectly. But due to this specific reason, whenever I had to move away from my PC I always prefer to get the pin out from the 3.5mm jack rather than taking out these IEMs out of my ears and putting them back in, as the latter sounded like an unpaid job and nobody likes unpaid jobs. The cables have the R and L denoted on them, which were pretty hard to read on the TRN MT1s. The shape of these IEMs might appear the same, but there are some subtle differences. The CA2 is the largest, with the EDX Pro being the smallest. The inside curve of the CA2 is the smoothest, followed by EDX Pro, and then the MT1 has this sharpest round edge towards the inside. And I guess due to this very reason, I experienced the CA2s to be the most comfortable, and then followed by the EDX Pros. I could really not feel any comfort with the MT1s, unfortunately, even if I tried to push these for more than 30 minutes in my ears. All of these three cables can connect to each of these IEMs with their 2-pin connectors. So you can guess who would never run out of wires for these IEMs or any of the IEMs in the future which use the same connector. Yeah, me. All of these IEMs have a mic 2 on them, and this is how they sound when recorded over a phone call. This is how the mic sounds when I'm not pushing the mic close to my mouth, and this is how it will sound when I push it close to my mouth. Okay, these are the CA2s, and this is how the mic will sound if I am not pushing the mic next to my mouth, and this is how it will sound if I push the mic next to my mouth. I mean, where else would I push it? Okay, these are the EDX Pros, and this is how the mic will sound if I don't push it next to my mouth, and this is how the mic will sound if I push it next to my mouth, because pushing things next to your mouth is bad. Well, a free bonus which came as a surprise is the passive noise isolation of all of these IEMs, which is just great. And at just 50% of the volume, I can hardly hear anything around me. And the joy that I can't hear any of the blabbering humans around me was immense with all of these three IEMs. Well, no matter how I assess these earphones, you have to make sure you are completely aware of the fact that these are the most affordable IEMs right now. And that is why I'm not going to compare them with anything priced twice or thrice of them. And also because I don't have any more IEMs which cost twice or thrice of any of these IEMs. Now these three IEMs were majorly tested on my PC, with which has a Asus TUF X570 Gaming Plus motherboard on it, and which has the Realtek ALC S1200A 8-channel high definition audio codec on it. And that makes me wonder, why did I read the whole name and I could have just slapped it on the screen, and I might have already done that. I mainly listened to these three tracks to test all of these three IEMs, and here are some of my non-audiophile conclusions. For Radiohead, the CA2s were sharp and clear overall, and the highs won't hurt your ears. I mean, they will sound a bit soft in a way that they won't pierce your ears, but I'm saying this comparatively. The lows aren't as bassy as I felt they were on the EDX Pro, but just strikes the perfect balance here. The sound signature was very calm overall. For the Chemical Brothers soundtrack, the CA2s proved quite fast and adaptive for a song like this. They actually caught on to the fast moving lows here better than the EDX Pros, which generally behaved the best in lows so far. The Star Wars theme sounded the most balanced on the CA2s. I felt these sounded the closest to how the track is supposed to sound like, with all that wide dynamic range and stuff. Well, coming on to EDX Pro, for Radiohead, the vocals and treble weren't as sharp and lacked some sort of clarity if I compared these to the CA2s. I mean, they suffered just a bit, which is of course expected from a set of IEMs which lean more towards the lows rather than the other frequencies. For the Chemical Brothers track, I think the CA2s did a better job with keeping up with the pace of this song as compared to the EDX Pro. And again, I'm not saying these are bad on the EDX Pro, but the CA2s were just slightly better in this aspect. The Star Wars theme sounded rich and the dynamic range was the best here. So in this aspect, the EDX Pros were actually just slightly better than the CA2s. And you won't be wrong if you're someone who might just like the CA2s over the EDX Pro for tracks like these, as to be honest, they performed so close that it does fall in the realm of subjectivity. And in the first score, the EDX Pros sounded wonderful for most of the trance music I typically listen to. The lows are ample for a balanced sound signature. But the vocals do feel a bit tiny on these. I wouldn't call them terrible, but yeah, looks like they are the weakest point on them. But yeah, they get ample frigging loud for sure. Also at max volume with bass heavy tracks, you could feel the lows could suffer a bit as the IEMs reach their threshold. But if you're someone who likes that low rumble sound from the bass playing with the equalizer a bit, you can definitely reach there. So the EDX Pros will outperform any of these IEMs if you are someone who listens to trance mostly, like how I am as a listener for the past few years. Well, I can't really stress this enough that the lows rumble the best on the EDX Pros out of these three IEMs. Well, on a personal level, I didn't like the MT1 at all when it comes to songs like the Radiohead. This IEM has the weakest low frequency performance. The vocals also sometimes sound a bit muffled as compared to the other two IEMs. And for the Chemical Brothers track, yes, they were fast and quite adaptive, but I am not sure if I could truly enjoy them in comparison to the other two IEMs I've bought for this video. And for the Star Wars theme, the MT1 felt the least impactful too. The TRNs have the least amount of low rumbles, and listening to trance on this was a terrible experience for me at least. Of course, for me at least, as there's no one else here testing these earphones and their tangled wires. So the CCA CA2s, so many C's, well, they are kinda in the middle of both of these options. The lows are richer than the MT1s, and the mids and the highs are richer and clearer than the EDX Pros. I didn't expect it to be this perfect amalgamation if compared against the two other options, as the brand doesn't even have a proper website on it. But yeah, it performed better than I expected and is the most comfortable too. But yeah, I will be honest with you, this IEM is definitely not a looker. And by looker, it doesn't mean that the IEMs would be looking at you. You or someone else has to look at them and then not compliment these IEMs design, I guess. But if you love having good lows or bass, then you can't go wrong with the EDX Pros too, by sacrificing some of the clarity the CA2s have. For gaming, I tested these headphones on Counter-Strike Go, again on my PC, and the EDX Pro performed the worst during this test. The sounds of the bullets were way thinner and louder with minimal amount of punch, that they actually dominated even the sounds of footsteps, making it harder to listen to anything else apart from just the gun firing in most of the scenarios. So yeah, they kinda sucked. The CA2s fared the best when it comes to being as fast as the game sounds, and it maintained those heavy bullets and footstep sounds quite well balanced, and punchy enough too to have that thumpy fun during a gaming session. But if you need these specific sounds to be slightly less punchier, then the TRN MT1 can be the next best option too. It performed almost as fast as the CA2, but if you don't want that 10 to 15% more lows which are there on the CA2s, then you can go with the MT1. I mean, be my guest. So as a basic conclusion for gaming, the CCA CA2 and the TRN MT1 sounded so similar that I would say if gaming is your priority, then either of these will be good for you. But yeah, again, the CA2s look to be a great overall performer if you don't mind cutting off those 15 to 20% lows rumble which are there on the EDX Pros. But if you're someone who listens to music like trance, pop or hip hop and doesn't plan to game much, then the EDX Pros could be a really good option too. I mean, personally, I would always want to listen trance on the EDX Pros, but if I'm editing or I'm doing other sort of stuff, I will hop on to CCA CA2. And for the battery life of all of these, yeah, we don't have that stupid here. So yeah, this was my first attempt at reviewing any sort of audiophile gear, and I could honestly do that as these are quite affordable for the price they come at. And for the super affordable pricing, they do outperform a lot of earphones or earbuds when it comes to having a balanced sound signature overall. I mean, these IEMs have made me feel that my OnePlus Buds Z are completely trash. And again, for instance, these just blow the Sennheiser CX300S out of the water in terms of clarity, which still costs thrice as much as any of these three IEMs. I will make sure to post their affiliate links below in the description. You can also buy from there if you want to support the channel and my efforts on this video, or if you want me to buy more IEMs in the future for myself. You can also hop onto our Discord server for more chit chat on relevant content. So yeah, stay safe humans. That's all for today. MuBot and his ears out.